All right, welcome to Retire Japan TV, where we talk about money, personal finance, investing, retirement, and random stuff that we think is interesting.
Hello.
Sorry for the slight delay today. We had a bit of a settings mix up. So if you're joining us live, thank you very much. If you're watching the replay, also thank you very much. How are you doing, Daniel?
Pretty well, thanks. Yeah, back at work after the holiday break. I had an extra long kind of Christmas break, which was really, really nice. But I was also happy to be back because that's why I work remotely, and it's kind of, you miss that physical social interaction, obviously. And so I actually quite like being back at work, as long as it's not too busy, because that's when I get my social interaction back, and yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I always like coming home because I've got my routine here. Like going on holiday is great, but for me, like 10 days is fine. Like 10 days away is about as much as I want, and then I want to come back and get back into my daily routine. But it's fear of the snake.
Yeah, you couldn't quite get into your daily routine this time, I think, could you? When you came back from your holiday, it was
no,
straight into
absolute nightmare,
straight into isolation, wasn't it?
Yeah. So straight back into influenza, probably A. I didn't get it checked properly. I had a home testing kit,
right?
But my granddaughter had influenza A. So I'm pretty sure. And she came up to me the day before and she was like, oh, and I was like, oh, what's wrong?
I feel well.
Fever. Okay. So now I have influenza A. Awesome. But so I had that. And then on Friday, I had a bunch of medical tests. I had like the camera, down the throat and all that stuff. So that was fun. First time I'd done that. I'm thinking of writing it up for the blog. Do you think people will be interested?
What I was going to say, so for people new to the country, just settling here, we talk about finances mostly, but obviously from a health or like a practical point of view, any sort of interesting things to report back about? Oh, this was good, this was bad, or
yeah. I mean, this clinic is famous in Sendai because it's I think as intrusive camera kind of things go, it's fairly painless. It's the name of the clinic is the stomach and colon cameras that aren't painful. It's really? The name of the clinic.
Really? Oh, I love it.
So they've got a real thing going on. That's all they do, pretty much. And it's totally set up for that. So they've got all these little rooms where you wait in, and yeah, it was actually painless. It was general anesthetic, so I was completely out of it. It's really funny. They put this gag on you, so you get this kind of like it's straight out of Pulp Fiction. It's like we're gonna put this gag on now, and it's this gag plastic thing with a hole in the middle for the camera to go in. Because obviously, if you're unconscious, they want your mouth open.
Wow,
so yeah, I mean, it took like 3 hours in all, and it was completely painless, and they didn't find anything. But yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
So yeah, I think I will write it up just for completeness sake.
Yeah, I've never done that. So I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah. The worst bit was they make you take this laxative stuff, which is not just like a pill or something. It's this liquid, and they're like, yeah, you have to drink 200 milliliters of this every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes? Whoa.
And that doesn't sound very bad, does it? But after like an hour and a half, you've had like 2 liters. Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. I mean, I got to the point where I was like, no more. I can't do this anymore. And it's just relentless. Like every 10 minutes, right? It's another 200 milliliters. Yeah. It's another, and it's not particularly pleasant either. So, yeah, that was the worst bit by far.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I'll write it up. It was interesting. It was the first time I'd done that kind of thing, and it was pretty painless actually with this clinic. Right. So I think if you have the option of being unconscious for these kind of things, it's probably easier.
Yeah. Now we're a personal finance show, and so there might be people new to the country here. So, how many months' salary did that cost you, and how much did you get screwed by insurance companies?
Oh well, it is fairly expensive. I think it was 5,000 yen for each, basically. So the stomach camera and the colonoscopy or whatever it is. And then they had an option where they said, if we find anything, do you want us to remove it?
Oh, there and then.
Now, given that, you're unconscious and we could do it easily. So I was like, yeah, do that. And that would have been more expensive, but they didn't find anything. So it was 10,000 yen after insurance for the whole thing.
Wow. Okay.
Which I thought was, it was reasonable.
Yeah.
And I'd asked them to do it because I'd had these stomach issues. So I was like, I want to find out.
Yeah.
It was worth it for the peace of mind, and it was worth it for the lack of discomfort, I think.
Yeah.
But just before I went away in the end of December, I actually had a brain scan. So, I had that like passing out incident thing.
Oh, yes. Was that an MRI?
Just falling apart, aren't I? So I went to a brain clinic and I had an MRI like on the spot. So I rocked up, said, I passed out. I want, I'd like to have my brain checked. And they're like, yeah, we'll do an MRI. And that took an hour and a half for the whole thing. So I showed up out of the blue, didn't have an appointment. They scheduled the thing, they did the MRI, and then the doctor explained it to me, and I was out of there an hour and a half later.
Wow.
So that was amazing. And that cost 7,000 yen. So I was really impressed with that one.
Yeah, very good. It's good to have so Dr. Krishna, thank you for the comment. I assume that's a medical doctor, maybe. But part of the course is reassuring, isn't it? It's,
No, I mean, I'm really happy with healthcare here, especially when you hear stories from the UK where, like if you wanted to get an MRI, it could take weeks, months, maybe before you actually were able to. So, yeah, I think Japan really does walk that line between affordability and access.
Yep.
There's countries where, medical care is free at the point of delivery. But often they don't have the investment that allows them to deliver the amount or the speed that you'd want. So I quite like Japan's version of it. It's not perfect, but it seems to work fairly well most of the time.
Yeah, I agree from personal experience as well. Yeah.
All right, let's stop talking about my medical. That's so boring.
You seem to be feeling better, well, nearly 100% better.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It is the year of the snake, which is my birth year. So I'm pretty psyched about that.
Good, congratulations, I guess.
Apparently, I'm a gold snake, so I attract money or something. So,
right, I'll come up to visit you.
What are your qualifications for running Retire Japan? Well, I'm a gold snake. So
gold snake level 1. Cool. So we have a few
things. My wife looked it up in this big book of horoscopes, and she was like, "Oh, you're a gold snake." Ugh. Just obsessed with money.
Yeah. Hello, foregone conclusion. Nice to see you again. Right, better than being a golden goblin, says Dr. Krishna. Yes, true. Right, today's show, then we have several things lined up. But what we'll do is we'll talk about the main topic, which we've got. That will come up first. We have general news, interesting things that have been happening that we'll cover. Money tip, a little confessional or two. If you've got questions, stick them in the comments. We will try and get to them as we go through. But if we can't manage all of them, we also have a Q&A section at the end for extra ones like that.
Yeah, we're going to meander all over the place. But I think today's topic's really good. I think it's really important. So thanks, Daniel, for coming up with it.
Yeah, so this is based on me seeing an article, which unfortunately is behind a paywall. So it's only for subscribers to read it, unfortunately. But we can sort of cover it. It's from The Economist, and the title is "The Wealth Whisperers Who Save Super Rich Families from Themselves." Oh, we're feeling sorry for the super rich families. And the subheading is "A new cast of consultants is helping to avoid Succession-style crises." So that's Succession, the TV show, where it's all about super rich family and the fights to take over the wealth. And it turns out that I found it interesting, just because it's interesting to read about, but also I think a lot of it can apply to people even if they're not super rich, and we can talk about why. Shall I go over my initial takeaways first?
Yeah, let's do that.
So it turns out that super rich people are apparently really nervous about sort of maintaining their wealth. I don't think it's necessarily about getting even richer, but it's about not losing the wealth they built up as the generations go. Like in 1 or 2 generations, they don't want the family to split up or any problems.
Isn't
and
there a
arguments.
Japanese proverb about that? Like the first generation makes the money, the second generation manages the money, and the third generation loses the money, or something like that. Which makes sense, actually.
Yeah, I don't know of one. It sounds like there could be one, but certainly the article covers the high percentage of families that lose their wealth within 2 or 3 generations. And so there's a set of consultants sort of that has a small industry that has come up to really try and avoid this from happening. And the approaches seem to be that you have a board of directors for your family, basically, which will consist of people from within the family and also external advisors. And then they would establish, I'm quoting here, a vision, a set of values, and agree on an investment strategy, which kind of sounds sensible, whatever your sort of position is. And then this board will have regular meetings, for example, every 3 months or whatever, to discuss the progress and the strategy and make changes. And one thing I liked here is that this particular board, we operate unanimously, they said. If we don't have everyone saying yes, then we don't do that thing that we were considering, which sounds good. And certainly within my family, our son's now left, so it's me and my wife. If we don't agree on something, then we probably shouldn't do it. If I go off and do something with a lot of money or the family money on my own without our agreement, I'm probably going to be in trouble. So to get around that, and to help with sort of younger family members who might not be as experienced with money, they do set aside a smaller budget for each person in the family to, quote, learn about finance through practice. Or in my experience, it's make a lot of mistakes before you put any serious money into it. And that could also be play money, I think. It's like, oh, I really want to invest in this frivolous thing. Okay, here's a fixed amount of a small thing.
The Trump coin.
Yes. So there you go. That's basically the takeaways that I got from it. So that's at a sort of super rich level. They have this board of directors. But thinking about it, I think a lot of that could be relevant for everybody. And I know you've talked about in the past actually sitting down with your parents-in-law, I think, and discussing inheritance. And you're probably not talking about the 26 million that was mentioned in the article, but still, it's really good to have these family discussions. And I've found this recently as well. So I'm interested to hear from you, but also the people who are listening and watching. When was the last time you sat down with your family and discussed financial matters? How often do you do that? Is it worth it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the 2 really big ones were getting common ground with my wife with this stuff, because she really wasn't interested or attracted by the idea of investing in stocks or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So that was a difficult. That took years. I mean, that's. Really? I think it took us like 10 years to get on the same page.
Wow.
But we got there eventually, just by doing things and getting results and seeing how that worked and talking about it endlessly. Mm-hmm. So, and then the other one was talking about inheritances. So both my wife's parents, like estate, as it were, and then mine as well, and my wife's, like sitting down and we made wills together, basically. But I think it's important to have that discussion, especially if there's different people involved. Like my wife's brother was also part of that conversation, because I've seen this happen like in Friends, where there's a death and then the siblings squabble about how the estate is dealt with, and they don't talk to each other anymore. So it completely rips the family apart for not particularly significant amounts of money either. And it could have easily been, you could avoid the entire thing just by having conversation. One conversation, this is what we want to happen. And most of the time, if you tell people that, they're not going to be surprised. They're not going to be upset, because they know what's going to happen. It's when people make assumptions and then reality doesn't match those assumptions, and then there's huge problems. Like in the case I'm thinking of, one sibling was taking care of the parents, the other sibling was living somewhere else, and then the estate was split down the middle, and they weren't happy with that because they were like, oh, I did all the work, I should get more of the estate, I should have gotten the house, and it was just a big mess, basically. It was people's feelings clashing with the reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they could have, the parents could have avoided that completely just by saying, hey, here's what's going to happen. Are you guys happy with that? There would have been no surprise and no hurt feelings, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting lawyers and wasting a bunch of money on that as well. So,
yeah. Wow. That's only one half, though, I think, isn't it? The inheritance is the current managing as well. Although going back to inheritance, sorry, my dad just the other day asked me, he said, because I help him with his investments and stuff, and he said, what happens when I die? It's like, I don't want to answer that, but I did. We made it practical, not emotional, and it was really helpful. And yeah, it's like, okay, good. And now let's carry on with the fun stuff. So yeah, it wasn't awkward at all. It was a matter of fact. Oh, that's just helped him out a bit. And yeah, as you say,
going over the process, what's going to happen, what needs to happen as well. Like, you need to have your little file with account numbers and things in it.
I keep meaning to do that. I haven't got around to it. Yeah.
One reason I made the will is that my will has the banks and so on, the names of the banks and so on. It doesn't have the account numbers, but it tells you which financial institutions I have assets with. And so it'd be easier in the future to contact those financial institutions and say, hey, our grandfather just died and his money's in your bank, so give it to us, please. Because that's where a lot of the losses come from, when people don't even know about these things. If you have a bank account but your family don't know about it, at the moment, I don't think the banks are going to proactively go looking for the heirs or whatever.
No. Yeah, so that's sort of inheritance side, but as well for current financial decisions as well. One personal thing that springs to mind is that we were considering, I mentioned this on the podcast actually, getting a investment property, first one, not done it before, just a small little apartment. And in the end, only one of us was sort of comfortable with the idea. So, okay, we scrap it. It's not worth having one person upset about, so we didn't go ahead. And yeah, I'm pleased we did that. It just keeps things simple and happy, and that's what we want.
Yeah. I think that dialogue is important. I try and sit down with my wife probably once a quarter and go over numbers. So I've got my my spreadsheet that I update monthly, and then every so often I sit down with her and say, hey, here's the spreadsheet. And she's like, oh, you with your spreadsheet. I mean, how do I know that you're not just making it all up anyway? I was like, yes, okay, that is possible. But so we go through the numbers and kind of my thinking, what I'm thinking about stuff. And then we try and talk about why we're doing this. So like why we have savings and so on. And for me, it's about, first of all, safety. So that, we if we have problems, if something happens, then at least money is not going to be a concern. And that's very important for me. And also freedom, so that we have the freedom to do things in the future, basically. And those are my kind of motivating factors. And that's why we haven't got a big house. That's why we haven't got like cars and so on, because I think there's more important things to do with that money, basically.
That's why I haven't got. This
was a struggle. This was a real struggle to start with, because my wife did want a house, and we had quite a lot of arguing about that, because buying that kind of house at that time would have not allowed us to do what we did do, basically. So it would have been such a big financial commitment that it would have restricted our ability to save and invest and so on. So, and that was a real bone of contention for a while.
Oh, right.
But I'm stubborn, and my wife is more accommodating than I am. So,
right, but better to have gone through that than to just go ahead with a decision that is going to be much harder to sort of solve in the future.
Exactly.
And you mentioned a good point as well. It's not necessarily if one person in the family dies, but it's just like either being incapacitated or run away or split up or whatever. That's going to cause a problem.
Yeah. I'm actually talking to you earlier. It reminded me that I probably need to go through my wife's accounts with her so that she knows how to sell things and move money out and do all that kind of thing. Because I've been doing it all because she's not interested. But it would be useful if she, had an idea of how to use the basic functions of the accounts. So.
Yeah, I've been doing this a few times recently. Just maybe it's every 3 months ish. Not really got a formal thing, but every now and then I'll go through the share account for my wife and say, "This is your password. This is what it looks like, and then this is how you can take money out." And unlike me, I doubt she's going to remember the password and like exactly how to do it and check it each day. But if eventually the need comes up, it won't be a complete shock. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is this? It's going to be, okay, I remember this. This bit was, I think, this looks how I remember it. And there's going to be comfort there, I think, rather than just shock.
And then the file.
That is, to-do list, right.
Did you get that life insurance policy in the end?
Yes, we did, yeah.
See, you're ahead of me on that because I haven't got around to that yet. But I probably should. Especially with all these brain scans and things.
Yeah.
I think the clock is ticking. So
yes, that was your advice. Thank you. And I actually mentioned that to my dad as well when he was asking me. I said, your investments will go to the person you've got as next of kin or whatever. But that might take a while. So in the meantime, it's called a term life insurance. Is that right? I forgot what it was. Yeah. Just doesn't have to be fancy. The simplest basic one, get that sorted out, and then at least there's some money that should come in quickly to at least tide you over for weeks and months.
Yeah, just to keep it.
The other person.
I mean, we do have a fairly healthy kind of cash reserve, so that should be enough. But
right.
Yeah, just for extra peace of mind, maybe.
Yeah,
and it's fairly cheap. I think I did a blog post about it, didn't I? So
yes, you did, and I read it.
Getting term life to tide you over until inheritances go through properly.
Yeah. And that's another example actually where family discussion was helpful, because I thought, you don't need that because we've got this, my savings, my share account, it'll all be fine. But if she's not comfortable accessing that quickly or going through the SBI or whatever, then she wants something else. So we actually went through, would this be helpful for you if I died, blah, blah, blah. Not, a super cheerful conversation, but it was practical. We got a good result and we're both on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, basically, it could take months to get access to accounts if someone dies. Whereas an insurance policy, at least in Japan, where insurance companies kind of honor their kind of policies generally, you'll probably get the money within a week.
Oh, really? Wow.
So that is going to make a huge difference, I think.
Yeah.
If you can you afford to wait for 2 or 3 months to get all the accounts unlocked? Or would it be helpful to have the money a few days later?
Yeah. I was trying to find the blog post where you mentioned it, but I can't now. Maybe we'll come to that later and post it in the show notes afterwards.
Look.
After reading that super rich, super wealthy the family article, which is interesting, I think there's a lot of benefit to anybody kind of copying their example, having family discussions, agreeing on not necessarily individual like small decisions, but certainly on larger decisions, or at least some kind of strategy. Are you more conservative? Are you more risky? What are you like your long-term goals? And then having a small update every 3 months, every half a year or whatever, so that everybody is at least a little bit comfortable with the situation.
And then the last one, I think, is talking to children about money. Which I think is incredibly important, just to have just normal conversations about money, whether it's about shopping, going to the supermarket. Why do we buy certain things? Why do we not buy certain things? Why do things cost what they cost? Just that kind of awareness of money. And then as children get older, things like, how much money you make as a salary, as a family, how much money you have, how you allocate that money, what you do with it, and why you decide to do things with it. How much other people make, how much other jobs are paid in Japan or elsewhere. Just so that money isn't taboo and isn't mysterious and isn't this magical thing that just appears for no reason, which some kids grow up thinking. Right. And I think that is not setting them up for a healthy relationship with money in the future, basically. So right now I've got my granddaughter. She's 12. She's fantastic. We spend a lot of time together. We talk a lot about money. So I talk about RetireJapan now, how much money I get from RetireJapan from various things, and how much money YouTube pays you, which is not a lot. And the next thing that I need to figure out is that so my granddaughter has a junior NISA account, and it's got a fairly healthy balance. So I need to figure out when to tell her about that. When to give her kind of access to it so she can see what it is, how it works, how it's performing, how it's growing over time, because that's what I want her to see. I want her to see the power of investing. And that if you leave your money alone, it will grow over time, and at the age of 18 she's going to get control of that account. So between now and then I need to brainwash her enough so that when she gets control of the money, rather than taking it out and spending it on trips to Disneyland, instead she'll just put it into a normal NISA account and then leave it alone. And then if she does that, then she'll be fine for money for the rest of her life. So
wow. Sort of say trip to Disneyland, not necessarily bad, but balanced against what is in the account, as not spending.
So I did have a comment on the RetireJapan forum that really annoyed me, and that made me realize that it's something that I needed to think about. When things like make you irrationally annoyed, often it's because they're true, or because there's something that you hadn't thought about properly. So I was like, okay, that annoyed me, and I'm not sure why. So I kind of tried to figure it out. And the comment was basically, why don't you let her just spend the money, because the memories that she'd get from spending the money are going to be more valuable than having a few 100 million in the bank when she's 95 or whatever. And I was like, I can see that, but I really have this theory about money, and that is that there's the biggest difference in the world between money that you earned and saved up and managed, and money that you didn't, that just dropped into your lap for whatever reason.
You won the lottery or big inheritance.
You won the lottery, you got an inheritance, just money turned up for no reason, and it's not going to happen again. It's a windfall, and I think windfalls are so dangerous. And I've seen this time and time again, where windfalls kind of break people, because you get this money, you don't know how to take care of it, you don't know how to manage it, you don't know how to spend it, and often you'll spend it or lose it, but you'll have got used to having it, and then it's gone. And that is just terrible. It's like the guy, that news story about the guy in the UK who had his Bitcoins on a hard drive, and his partner put them in the bin or something, and it's in a landfill somewhere. And every year, the value of those Bitcoins is getting higher and higher. I think it's worth like 700 million pounds now or something. And he keeps suing the council to let him go in and dig through this dump to find his Bitcoins. And this has basically ruined his life completely. Like, he spent the last 10 years just obsessing over this money that he never had and he's not going to get. And it's just really sad to see. But that's what windfalls do to people, I think. So in the case of my granddaughter, I don't even want her to think about having this money. I want her to just have it in reserve so that she doesn't have to worry about saving for retirement, and she can concentrate on managing her own money.
Right.
And then, you know, she can do fun things with her own money and so on. I think that would be much healthier for her. So
going back to the super rich article, then how does that balance with these mega rich families who their children are going to inherit a huge amount?
well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like,
they shouldn't?
I think that's terrible. Yeah. I mean, I like Buffett's approach where he said, you know, my family, you know, Warren Buffett has how much? 400 billion or something, you know, he's ridiculously, and he said, no, my family's not getting this. My family's going to have enough money to have a comfortable life, and that's it. I'm going to give the rest of it away. And I think that's incredibly sensible.
So at the beginning, we were talking about generational wealth sort of disappearing over 2 or 3. For conclusion, I said it's shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations or something. So you're saying, basically, that's not a bad thing, as long as it's not to poverty.
I think so. I think it's much healthier to, you know, I would hate to be in that situation because you're used to it. You're expecting it. You're going to get it. Where's the motivation to do anything? If you know that, you know, when you're 25, you're going to get $50 million. What's the motivation to do anything apart from, you know, kind of spiral off into drugs and buying stupid stuff?
That's pretty much what they talked about in the article. And they have these clinics for super rich inheritance.
Who are just messed up, right? Because they're broken. So, yeah, I mean, I really think that the healthiest thing to do if you're in a wealthy family is to, like, try and do it again yourself, you know, or, you know, do something yourself.
But you've got a safety net.
Yeah. So that's the balance, isn't it? How do you take care of your family without messing them up? That's why I like Die with Zero, because it's all about, okay, let's share experiences with people. Let's pay them money. It's a book, Die with Zero. Really good. If you've got your finances sorted out, I recommend reading it. If you haven't got your finances sorted out, it's irrelevant. But if you're kind of sorted and you're doing okay, it's a good book to read because it tells the opposite story, which is not, you know, save and make sure that, you know, you're safe. And it's like, yeah, it's the flip side, which is like, you got to make sure that you enjoy your time now, kind of thing. So,
yeah. Wow.
we got kind of deep there, didn't we? I think one of the worst things you could do to kids is say, hey, here's enough money so that you never have to work.
Right.
Because what are you going to do with your life? And
also from a personal point of view as well, I don't want my son like not having to work when I had to work hard. So, hey, no, you do your bit. That's not. It's
like flights. Like I will never pay for. I will never put my grandkids in business class, for example. Ever, like just as a matter of principle. Like even if we, you know, like if you want to go in business class, you have to pay for it.
Oh, right. Like that.
You know, you have to earn it yourself, I think.
One other thing I did want to mention actually is about going back to talking with our children. When our son was younger, he said sometime it was about somebody with a flashy car or something, and he mentioned, "Oh, I must have lots of money and must be rich or something." And my reaction is no. Like, we don't know what debt they took on to pay for that car. They could have a minus in their bank account.
Yes. Yeah, I've had that conversation with my granddaughter as well about
already. Wow.
You know, you don't know. Often the rich people don't look rich at all.
Yeah,
and often the people that look flashy are like, you know, they've got huge debts. So.
There is something I wanted to go back to. Dr. Krishna again mentioned trusts instead of wills, especially for Japan from a tax perspective. I haven't really looked into this. I've heard of trusts. Isn't this like above a certain amount of wealth, then it's more beneficial to have a trust rather than just write
I'm not very familiar with trusts. My understanding is that Japan basically doesn't really recognize them. So especially abroad, it might make sense to, you know, set up a trust for people. But for people who are in Japan, that's actually terrible because often the tax office will just kind of take it that you've received those assets already, even if you don't have control of them.
Oh.
So yeah, it's definitely worth talking to professionals before doing anything like that. So
yeah. A couple of comments about Trump coin, which we'll just talk about briefly later.
we do not endorse Trump coin or any other coins.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint you, David and Russell. Foregone conclusion says you can pass on 1 million yen, I think it's a tiny bit more than that, to a child each year as an untaxed gift. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spouse,
so
children.
gift tax exemption is 1.1 million. The person receiving the money keeps track of that. So it's not that you can give 1 million; it's that a person can receive up to 1.1 million without paying gift tax. And yeah, that's a great idea. So if you've got a bit of spare cash and you want to give it to your children, that's okay. But you have to be careful in that it has to go into their account. They have to be aware of it, and they have to have control of it. And if those conditions are not met, the tax office may come back and say, actually, you didn't give it to them at all. You're just pretending that it's, you effectively have control of it. They don't know about it. It's your money. It's not their money.
Oh, that's how it works.
You have to be a little bit careful with that.
Oh, okay. Right.
But most of the time it's fine as long as you do it properly. So
yeah. When we were talking about teaching children about finance, Kelly earlier mentioned, why isn't this taught in school? Investing in savings. Totally agree. There used to be, back in the UK, PFEG, Personal Finance Education Group, which was set up to try and encourage personal finance to be a proper topic in schools, but I don't think it ever really took off.
Japan started last year. So in high school.
Oh, really?
Allegedly, they've started teaching personal finance, investing, all that kind of thing. I don't know how well it's taught. I don't know who's doing the teaching, but I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
There seem to be lots of banks involved, which I'm not super happy about, but I guess they have the resources to make materials and maybe I'm guessing a lot of teachers don't feel confident talking about this stuff.
Right. Yeah. We mentioned about discussing finances potentially with an outside person, and Chen, asks, have you ever taken one of the Rakuten Securities or some other finance organization,
That's
a professional advisor online consultation?
Yeah, I saw that. You can get a free consultation with Rakuten Securities, I guess with a financial planner through the Rakuten Securities thing. I haven't done it yet. I am interested, and I might look into it because I think that would make for an interesting blog post. I'm not expecting them to give me, but I don't know. It would be interesting to try. I would be very, very cautious. My experience of kind of advisors who work for banks. So my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, had someone at Mizuho who was giving her not particularly great advice. Like they basically, my impression is that they were just trying to flog off whatever they wanted to get rid of at that time. So every so often this woman would call her up and say, hey, we've got some great opportunities for you. Here's some Turkish bonds or here's whatever. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, this is just, incoherent rubbish. Like it wasn't a well planned out portfolio at all. It was just a bunch of random things that I'm guessing they wanted to get rid of or they could make a profit of. So
yeah.
So be very, very careful when, talk to banks, just be very cynical about it, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know what the Rakuten one is like, but any financial consultation that is free scares me because they could be making money, pay for their salaries somehow. And I assume it's going to come from commissions that they get on products they recommend that might not be the best. So if I were going for a consultation, I would personally look for something that is paid, which should be independent.
So who are they working for at the end of the day?
One thing that I found useful was some years, not every year, but some years we'll get this tax accountant just to go through because I'm not, I don't work for a Japanese company. I work for a foreign company. It's on a sort of freelance basis, so my tax are a little bit more complicated. And from her point of view, she says, this is easy, you could do it yourself. But I was so scared. So occasionally we'll get her just to double check stuff. And it's about Ichiman, it's just over Ichiman or something for the consultation, which I think is very good value. As well as going through the taxes, you can just have a chat with her and say, by the way, is this like sensible thing? And she can't really give advice, but what she does do sometimes is say, a lot of other foreigners that I speak to are also doing this, or, you haven't got property, you're unusual because all the other foreigners I speak to have got property. And then it's not advice, but it's like, oh, okay, we roughly know, what is sensible, not sensible, or whatever, or where we sit. Another question from Anonymous. What about putting, this is complicated, putting the nest egg in a trust or foundation in Hong Kong or Singapore with multiple beneficiaries who receive discretionary amounts so Japan tax residents can claim not to own or control it?
You want to talk to a professional about that? So I don't think that the Japanese tax office would be very impressed, but yeah, talk to someone who knows. Like, I don't know. You want to talk to an accountant or a lawyer in Japan who's qualified and can give you advice. So my own, I mean, basically, like, unless you've got serious amounts of money, you shouldn't even bother thinking about this stuff. It's not important. It's far more important just to do something sensible and build up your savings and investments over time. So if you're wealthy, you can afford to pay for professionals to help you. And if you're not wealthy, I think this is just a distraction, that kind of thing. If you put your money in NISA, if you put your money in iDeCo, if you put your money in a taxable account, you don't have to pay a lot of tax. It's very simple, and it's a very effective way to grow your money. So often running around with these tax schemes, you end up making less money because of the tax scheme than you would if you just invested in a NISA account or something.
And even if you do, what happens when you, as you said earlier, die, you become incapacitated, then the next person in your family has to deal with that. I wouldn't wish that on them. Unless you're rich enough to have somebody to deal with it.
Yeah, I would say unless you have more than 100 million, 200 million, 300 million, don't even worry about this stuff. And if you do, then you can pay an accountant to help you. Definitely.
He means yen, they're not dollars.
Yeah, thanks for that. Indeed. Yeah, if you don't have $200 million, why are you even listening to this podcast?
Another question. If you live outside Japan, will Japanese banks close your account if they find out you're now living outside of Japan? I have 6 bank accounts in Japan, but I've moved back to the UK. Oh.
I'm curious as to why this person has my face in there.
It fooled me at one point. This is not the real Sendai Ben.
Is this imitation being the sincerest form of flattery or something? Yeah, basically, if you're no longer living in Japan, then you probably should have closed your bank accounts and broker accounts. Banks are getting better at this, so often now banks are asking people to confirm their residence, confirm their ID, confirm their Zaidu card. And this is why, basically, because people who are living here aren't supposed to have a bank account. And that's why we're getting these annoying requests to provide our Zaidu card again. It's basically banks are trying to crack down on non-residents or people who leave and maybe sell or give their bank accounts to someone else, and those bank accounts are used for crimes and so on. So.
That makes sense. So my wife just had this with Wise. She had to reconfirm her identity. And I'm the foreigner. I thought I would be the suspicious one from a Japanese bank point of view. But that makes sense. I don't think she uses it very much. And so maybe they thought it was dormant and they'd moved out of Japan or something. Okay. Yeah. And so if you don't do that, I guess they will close it, or maybe not close it, but they'll freeze it.
Or freeze it. They'll freeze it. Yeah. So if you don't provide the ID within the required time period, then...
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, if you've got 6 bank accounts in Japan, I'd maybe make sure there wasn't too much money in them.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, if you come back, you can probably use them again. That seems to be how it works in practice at the moment. Even if they get frozen, you can probably show up and say, "Hey, actually, sorry, I forgot to come in. Here's my ID. Can you unfreeze my bank account?" But it's getting stricter, and it's going to get stricter in the future as well, I think. So. I wouldn't count on being able to keep accounts. All right.
Shall we continue with some more questions?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay,
I like
Chris.
the interaction. I think that it's really nice to have. It's not just us blathering on about our medical issues and things.
Now, Chris has quite a specific one here. Considering a life insurance policy via AXA that is 10-year pay-in of 5 million per year, guaranteed 210 million, wow, in case of death, average return of 6%. Oh, so this is kind of an investment vehicle life insurance, I think. And we have the ability to pay in with savings to spare, NISA, blah, blah, blah. Wonder if you are familiar with such policies and do you recommend it?
Not familiar. I would. My personal thing is that basically, if you're paying an insurance company to invest on your behalf, you're not going to make as much money as just investing by yourself. However, if you're doing NISA, if you're doing, you're investing as well, this could be a way to diversify. Because obviously this isn't going to be the same as the stock market. You're going to have different returns. So if you're already doing NISA, if you've got a decent amount of investments, this might be something different. You can diversify your portfolio a bit. You can kind of lock in some stability. It might make sense. So I definitely, think maybe if this is interesting to you, it'd be worth thinking about. It doesn't seem completely terrible, but obviously, I haven't seen the details and I'm not familiar with this kind of thing. But that's how I'd think about it. If you're not doing NISA, if you're not investing, I'd probably do that first. But if you are, this might be a way to diversify.
Found in Japan kind of speaks related to that. And they say, what I really don't like in Japan is the insurance funds. So there's an answer from somebody else. Similarly, I think, if it's insurance, it should be insurance. If it's investment, it should be investment. And they should be separate things that both focus on doing what they do separately. I would have investment fund and insurance as a separate thing, personally. Kelly again asks, if you have an income from another country, not that large, and income here, who in Japan should you contact to sort out these difficult expat taxes? That would be a tax accountant who's
often it's not that difficult either. I mean, you could just go to the tax office and say, hey, I've got this income from abroad. How do I type it into the tax return? And they will help you do that. So you don't necessarily need to get an accountant if it's not too complicated. Now, if you've got to do taxes in another country, then I don't know. But in terms of Japan, it's not that bad. You can put it in as income or miscellaneous income or something.
When I had this tax accountant consultation I mentioned, at that time I had some shares in the UK and some dividend income from that. And she wasn't 100% sure what to do about it, but she wasn't super concerned. As long as it's in there somewhere, if there's a problem, they'll come back to you. And so she said, put it in the same place as the Japanese dividends. So I did, and it was all fine. Nothing happened. And, I paid tax on that as well. There was one time where I filled in something wrong, actually, on the tax form. And they sent me a letter and said, can you come and see us? And I was really, really nervous. Went to the local tax office and they said, you've tried to get sort of lower tax by saying that you made a loss in the previous year. But that particular thing, I can't remember exactly what it was now, but that particular thing was not eligible for loss offset, whatever it's called. And so, oh no, I'm going to be in trouble. I'm really, really sorry. But then they said, on the other hand, in this other part of your form, you've actually overestimated the taxes here. You got that wrong in the other direction. And it's more or less the same, so we're just going to call it quits. Oh, great, thank you. So I don't know what I want to say there, but basically,
the tax office
I messed up, but they're still okay.
It's not adversarial, and it's not like my impression of the US, where if you make a mistake, then you're gonna get put in prison or something. Here, it's very much they just want the return to be done properly, and they'll work with you to do that. I really like the tax office here. Every interaction I've had with them has been kind of very professional and pretty friendly. So
I found the same thing. Yeah.
If you've got a question, just go in and talk to them, and it's generally a fairly positive experience.
Yeah, that's the answer, isn't it? They asked who should the contact to sort it out. Speak to the tax office first. It's free. Fun fact: I have a business that isn't set up with an office or limited in the UK. And a long-term resident of Japan, you pay VAT from the first money you make. I found out when I set up my FHL. Don't think that's a question, actually. That's just a comment from foregone conclusion. Thank you. I'm going to skip on to the next one. Oh, this is a good one. Found in Japan again. They've tried talking to their wife's Japanese family. So this is the parents, let's say, or whatever, to try and get them into stocks and investments. And they say they don't trust Kappa stocks. I guess it's too risky. And that it's too hard to pass them on to the next generation.
Yep.
So what do you do? Someone comes up to you and say, "Oh, I don't trust Kappa. I don't trust stocks and shares. It's too difficult to pass it on when I die." Therefore,
well, my experience is that you can't tell people about this stuff, personal finance, investing, anything, unless they're interested. You cannot tell them about it, regardless of how right you might feel and how useful it might be for them. Like I get this all the time. I've learned from bitter experience that just talking to random people and saying, "Hey, you should really open an ISA account. You should really start investing." Nah, you're not going to get anywhere with that conversation. On the other hand, if they're interested already, then you can help them. But in this situation, yeah, it's just not going to work. You're just going to cause problems for yourself, I think.
But what about in your case, where you got someone that you have to try and persuade? Like you said, right at the beginning with your wife, you had to have this conversation. It took 10 years or whatever. You can't really just like.
Oh, that works.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so
we're kind of stuck with each other. So
right. Well, similarly with the wife's family, though, isn't it? That you're going to have to come to some kind of agreement.
I wouldn't dream of trying to give my in-laws advice, because what if it goes wrong? It'd be on me. Like, I can help them, I can answer questions, I can do things, but it's their money, so if they don't trust stocks, then okay, good luck.
Here's the thing. I think generally we prefer.
However, I would go on. Sorry.
No, you can finish it.
I was just going to say that it's not hard to pass on stocks. They're just treated like any other part of the inheritance. So that's not true.
Right. Yeah. And in your account, you can actually specify either. We talked about this in the last episode, I think. Either a specific person that you want the account to go over to, or you can actually say, "I'm going to leave it to the legal process, and the legal process will work out who's going to be the next of kin."
Okay, that's for Ideco.
Oh, is it?
Anything else is just dealt with according to your will or your estate in general. Ideco's got that special rule. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So what was I going to say?
You were saying something there though, so I rudely interrupted you.
Yeah. So generally, I think we prefer mutual funds or an index, like an index of stocks that is generally going to be less up and down, less volatile, and sort of slower but sort of safer returns over the long term. However, one thing I found within the family was specific stocks, because it's something more concrete. For example, JAL. We bought JAL recently because we know JAL, we like JAL, we use it. We've seen the new female CEO on TV, and all the people have been wonderful. Every interaction we've had with JAL on the phone or in person has been very good, and people are always going to want to fly, and JAL probably will still keep going. So that kind of almost feels safer, even though it's just one individual stock. It's like something concrete, specific that you can imagine, and therefore you know what you're letting yourself into. That's one thing that I found helped with persuasion.
Yeah, the other thing is to do it in baby steps. So like let's all right, you don't trust this stuff, fine, let's do it with a really small amount of money, and you can see what happens to it, and then maybe if you're comfortable, you can put more money in later.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the way I'd do it, if you absolutely have to. But I don't think you're going to get very far trying to persuade family members, like,
if they're not interested in the beginning. Yeah,
I mean, maybe let's open it. Why don't you open an ISA account and put in 5,000 yen a month and see what happens? You know, it's
that's
not
a good point. Yeah, mentioning the low costs right at the start. Back to the fake Sendai, Ben. The Japanese banks accept foreign mobile phone numbers. I'm pretty sure they don't.
But yeah, that's a good way to get your account closed immediately, I think.
Oh, would they accept a Japanese landline? Yes, they would.
Probably.
Yeah.
But the issue is not the phone number. It's the fact that at some point they're going to say, hey, please provide your Zaidu card within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they'll do that by sending you a postcard to your registered Japanese address.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next question they have, I can answer this one actually, because we talked about it last time. So again, this is the fake Sendai Ben seems to be over. I think they mentioned they're in London. Is it possible to contact the tax office from overseas and do everything remotely without having to go to a city hall? I think it is, because
you could do it online, couldn't you? But you need my number.
Well, sorry, Ben, but I don't think you do all the time, because, well, or maybe if it's for very specific things, really in detail stuff. But the general tax discussion page has 3 options. You either go in person to your local tax office, or you can do the online AI-powered chat thing, which I tried, but it wasn't actually very good. Or you can phone them up on the number. Now, if you're phoning from overseas, it's probably going to be a bit more expensive. You maybe shouldn't mention that you're calling from overseas, but I've used that as well. You get through to a government expert who will answer your questions about the specific topic that you've got. I think it might be Japanese only. And when I called, it was like each number is a different category. So press 1 for income tax, press 2 for inheritance tax, or whatever. And if you have a different question, you then have to go back to the beginning and then redial to the correct one you want. You can't ask the same person a bunch of different questions. But it was very helpful. It got me the answer. So I imagine you can call that from overseas. Tokyo Electron is an individual stock. I don't have any. I wouldn't buy them. Are we allowed to say this? I don't know. Personally, I've thought about it, but I haven't, because semiconductors are on a boom at the moment, and when things are on a,
I think you've already missed it, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the best time to buy.
Growth. Yeah, I've got a family member that works for Tokyo Electron. Really nice company.
Oh, really?
They pay incredibly well. I don't own the stock directly, just as part of my my index funds, which own all stocks. So,
yes. So yeah, they could go up, they could go down. I wouldn't buy them right now, personally. Right, I think we pretty much
we have
everything there.
Awesome.
Right, let's move on.
What's next?
Okay. Hang on, I need to get some music ready, I think. That means it's time for the shameful investment story, and it's not me.
Yep.
I wonder who it is.
Yeah. I just have to own up to having some Bitcoin. I think now that Bitcoin's going crazy. So I have a small amount of Bitcoin that I've accumulated very slowly over time, and it's because it's grown so much. It's actually a much larger amount of our net worth than I want it to be. And I've continued putting money aside, but I haven't been buying new Bitcoin. I'm going to wait for it to crash, because I'm assuming it's going to crash by 90% at some point. And then I'll put the money that I've been putting aside each month, I'll put it into it then and see what happens.
Really? Okay. I think the days of 90% crashes might be behind us, actually.
I'm going to hold you to that. When it crashes in March, I'm going to make you wear like a dunce hat or something.
Okay, in that case, I'll go one further. By the end of this year, we will not see Bitcoin specifically. I don't mean all cryptocurrencies, but because I mean it's possible that Trump coin could crash 90%. Who knows?
No, Bitcoin only. Like digital
will not
gold
crash more than 50% this year. That's what I predict.
I'm not going for this year. Okay, I'll go for the end of 2026.
Oh wow! All right then. Okay. Yeah. I don't think it will.
You're saying not less than 50%.
Yeah, I think it's become stable.
All right. If it doesn't, I will wear the dunce hat. And if there's a 90% crash at some point, you will wear the dunce hat.
Oh, I'm nervous now. I think too many institutions and countries are involved now.
We shall see.
Yeah, okay. It suddenly got hot here. Anyway, so firstly, I wouldn't say that's a shameful investment story. I mean, it depends on the amount.
Well, I mean, I still don't think I don't see any reason why it has value. So me having it is kind of it's just a little punt with play money, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I don't believe in it. I don't see why any specific cryptocurrency should have value at all. Yeah, don't get it, but I've been wrong for a very long time. I think someone was telling me about Bitcoin in like 2013. Can you imagine? If I'd paid attention. I just laughed at them, I think.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Okay.
I don't believe in regret. I don't believe in second guessing myself. I don't do that. That's one of my strong points, I think. So yeah, what might have been, I wouldn't be the guy suing the council to try and get my 700 million pounds worth of Bitcoin. It's just life's too short, I think.
Right. Yeah. This is going to tie in with the news and other topics actually, but I will say that I'm a little bit different, and I do see the value in Bitcoin as cryptocurrencies, but then that makes it sound like all of them, most of them are rubbish. The value of having a sort of, so the blockchain is like a sort of huge spreadsheet that everybody can see, which is digitally secure, and I think it's fantastic that exists. I love the technology behind it, and countries, I think, more and more are going to want to move us away from paying with cash. I don't like that, but I think inevitably that's where they want to go, and that's where the world will have to go. If it can be an open, no single person or organization controls it kind of system like Bitcoin, I think that's much better than having one controlled by the government or by a certain bank or something. So in that sense, as something useful, I like it, and that then gives it value. So that's how I see that Bitcoin has value. But then that brings us to the other end of the spectrum, which is in the news right now. Trump announced Trump coin, I think 2 days ago. And then apparently Melania just announced she's got a coin as well, Melania coin. And I don't think that could be farther from the benefits that I just talked about, Bitcoin. I think that's just a money grab. And this is not financial advice, but I feel sorry for anybody who's jumping on that train and is going to have to time it.
Did you see the Hawk Tour coin?
No, I didn't.
So very similar. You know that girl that got famous for being
15 minutes of fame.
Yeah. Well, she launched a meme coin, and I think walked away with several $1 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everyone's very unhappy with her, so she's kind of disappeared.
Yeah, the people will get rich from it, but it probably won't be with me. So yeah, that's why I'm. Yeah.
I see the value of the Bitcoin technology. I don't see why any single cryptocurrency should have value, because you can clone them. Like I just don't get it.
Yeah.
However, don't trust me because I've been wrong for a long time.
Yeah. So I never get the pronunciation. Dogecoin, I think I had some in the past actually. There's no sort of limit on how many coins will ever exist. With Bitcoin, there's a limit of 21 million coins. There's no limit with Dogecoin. And therefore, that means it technically shouldn't have any value at all because it's infinite supply. And yet it does. And I thought this, 10 years ago. And since then, it's still got its value. I don't understand it. So, yeah, no matter what we think, the markets, what is it that's saying? The markets can be
remain irrational longer than you can remain liquid, right?
Right. Yeah, that's it.
Solvent, rather. Yeah.
Solvent. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so yeah, that's the one thing that we noticed on the news. The weird new meme coins that it's copy and paste, isn't it? What else do we have in the news? Let's do something a bit more sensible. Ideco updates. Last time. It might be different to what I had thought.
Well, did we talk about the increase in contribution limits last time?
Yes, and I thought it was happening right now. Because
yeah, so there's still no detail on when that's going to happen. So iDeCo contribution limits seem to be going up. So for people paying kokumin nenkin, so they're going to go up by 7,000 yen, so from 68 to 75,000 yen a month, which is cool. For people on Kousei nenkin, people who work for a company, it's going to go from 23 to 62, I think, which is incredible. It's going to triple almost your contribution limits. That's amazing. You can really save on taxes doing that, so that's really exciting. Public servants, maybe no increase. It's a bit sad. Like they just got a small increase. They just went from 12 to 20,000 a month last December, but it seems like they're not going to get an increase, which is a bit unfair. I think if you know, a company worker can put away 62,000 and a public servant can only put away 20, that doesn't seem fair, because you know, their pensions aren't materially different anymore. They used to be better, but yeah, a little bit sad. And I think dependent spouses don't get an increase either.
Oh, right.
But we don't know when it's going to happen. My guess is it's going to happen in 2026. So it was announced, it was confirmed, they put the law through, but they haven't implemented it yet. So
for now, iDeCo is right now exactly the same as last year.
Yeah,
okay. Right.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for clearing that up. Other news. What do we have then from around the country? Well, Kyoto is getting lots of either the influx of tourists, lots of them going to Kyoto, and they don't specify, but they say it's causing a few problems. And so they're raising the accommodation tax for overnight stays. So you go and stay in a hotel, you already have to pay a small additional tax, but they're increasing that. And it's done in bands. I think it's up to 20,000 yen and up to something, and then up to 100,000 yen, and then 100,000 and then 100,000 yen and above. So depending
the top
on
band's 100,000 yen a night, isn't it? And you'd pay an extra 10,000 for that.
Yes. So depending on the band, that dictates how much of the accommodation tax you have to pay in addition to your hotel fee. And if you're just sort of at the edge of the band, it could be up to 10% of your hotel fee, which I thought was a lot, but you seem to be in favor of it.
I think, yeah, I mean, Japan is so cheap right now with the currency and the cost of living compared to other countries that it should be taxing tourists a lot more. So personally, I don't know if messing with hotels and things is the way to go, because a lot of people don't stay in Kyoto. They visit it from Osaka or wherever, kind of like Venice. But for me, the obvious low-hanging fruit is visa on arrival. So just charge people for visa on arrival, you know, like $100 or something. Like $100 is not going to make any difference to anyone coming to Japan for a week or two. But the country, you know, there's 37 million tourists.
That's really that
times
many.
Times $100 each. That's a lot of money, you know, and it's just lying there, and the government could pick it up, you know, and everyone's pissed off with tourists. So if we make some money off them, that might help. Yeah, for me, that's the obvious one. Like, yeah, charge people for visa on arrival, and get rid of tax-free shopping, because I don't see the point of tax-free shopping. Why are we letting people not pay tax on their shopping when they come here? I don't understand. What's the purpose? What's the benefit for Japan for this? Like Hong Kong used to have it, and people would go to Hong Kong to go shopping, but people aren't coming to Japan to go shopping. They're coming to Japan to do other stuff and do some shopping on the side. So yeah, why are we losing that tax revenue? I don't get it.
And join us next time for Ben rants about tourism.
Rah, rah, rah. And yeah, and I don't even have tourists. Like Sendai is not a touristy city. We don't really have many tourists up here, and I like it that way. So imagine if I lived somewhere with lots of tourism, I'd be going mad, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned the visa on arrival. Do you mean like an ESTA kind of thing that the US has?
It doesn't have to be. I mean, some countries charge you for visa on arrival. You just pay when you get to the airport because you don't have a visa. So you buy a visa at the airport. And I don't see why Japan wouldn't do that. And yeah, the easy way to do it electronically. So, you know, people pay, you know, 15,000 yen for their visa thing.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was just the US that had that with ESTA. Oh, and I went over on
UK's Got it.
Right, this is it.
Now.
So then I went to Canada, and I have to do it for Canada as well. Wow. And then, Europe and UK, I think.
Yeah. So my wife's going to have to do it going into the UK. I'm going to have to do it going to Europe, which burns my soul, because I really do feel European.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, why not? Why isn't Japan doing this? We've got a budget problem. We have arguably too many tourists to the point where it's annoying people and it's affecting their quality of life. Why not fix both of those?
There you go. Ben said it first.
Come on, Ishiba. This is a no-brainer. Like, the voters will love it, and there's no downside.
Yeah, unfortunately, and our next news item, Ishiba can't help you with that because he's actually really busy at the moment. He's so busy. This is where we need the sad trombone thing. Apparently, according to Kyoto News, he's too busy to smoke. Please spare a thought for Ishiba-san, because he's struggling to find time to smoke at work in Parliament. He used to go and have his own chair in the smoking room, apparently, but now Prime Minister.
You can't sit around smoking all day anymore. Yeah.
No. Definitely. Oh, poor guy. Oh, dear. Right, that's enough of that news. This is good. Right, so if people don't know, Ben puts out a thing called the Monday Read, which comes in over the weekend, not on Monday in my inbox. But anyway, it's a weekly sort of blog post and newsletter with a few words of wisdom, but also links to various things around the internet that have been I've caught his eye over the past week. And one of them over the last one, which is a very good one, it's the Japan Finance subreddit, and they do a annual report each year looking back on the past year. And this latest one is quite long. It links to all the useful posts or the posts that had a lot of comments in that personal finance for Japan Finance subreddit. So I recommend that. First thing is I just wanted to point people to that because it's very, very interesting to look through there and then sort of go down little rabbit holes. And I did that. And one thing I found is that I thought, okay, I know all this stuff. People are asking about mortgage or bank accounts. Oh, that's good. I know this. And I ended up discovering that apparently you're supposed to submit an asset. What is it now? You're supposed to report your assets above a certain amount. Oh, I was supposed to mention this at the end in the Q&A, but I've messed up the order. But anyway, so what I want to say is that it's well worth looking through that subreddit's annual report, because there's the sort of obvious questions that people always ask, and then there's some really nice sort of in-depth topics that really throw up things that you might not have even thought about.
It's the best part of Reddit, I think. It's the only part of Reddit that I think is worth reading.
Right.
But it's actually pretty good. It's still Reddit, so you've still got some unpleasant people, but for Reddit, it's pretty good, I think, and it's a really good resource, especially for things like taxes and really specific questions about finance in Japan. Really good place to ask questions.
Yeah. Don't have much more to say about that other than recommending it. Next thing is not really finance related, but there was an earthquake just the other day down in just off of Miyazaki again. And that has raised, according to the Kyoto News again, raised the chance of Japan's Nankai Trough megaquake to 80%. Oh, this is the government panel that said that. It doesn't mean right now, but it means
over the next 30 years.
Yeah, there is apparently an 80% chance of a megaquake along that sort of southern Nankai Trough. Not a lot we can do about that other than be prepared, and that is just sort of an excuse to remind people of a previous podcast show that we did about disaster preparedness, especially without spending much money. And there's several things you can do, and Ben was in Sendai at the time of the big March 11th earthquake tsunami. So we're not just talking off the top of our heads. So I think that's a useful one to go back and watch.
Yeah,
there's the Kyoto News link if people want to see that. What else do we have? Oh, yeah. Now I'm interested in this, or in what our audience thinks about this. The Osaka Expo is happening this year, and I think it's around April that it starts, and then goes through till I think it's October. Yeah, there we go. April 13th to October the 13th. The 2025 World Exposition. As people probably know, I think most countries in the world are going to have a stand there, and there was a meeting of around 150 or so representatives from these various countries. Can you believe it? They were unhappy that the Japan ticket booking system was more complicated than it needed to be. No.
To be fair,
yeah.
fair, I went and looked at it.
Yeah.
After we had our chat this afternoon, and it's a complete nightmare.
That's to be fair.
Like the booking page, it makes no sense at all. It's like, so you book a day and then you enter a lottery and then you like, why can you not just book a ticket?
Yes. I think the first step is to buy the ticket, and you buy a ticket and then you book the day and then you have a lottery for the places that you're allowed to visit,
and then you can change it 3 times but not more. Like, what? Why?
I didn't know that extra complication.
Yeah, so yeah, not that I was going to go anyway, but looking at that I was just like, nah, thanks.
right I'm kind of torn at this because I've never been to World Expo. I haven't. I've never been to World Expo. It'd be interesting. I don't even know what it kind of is. Really.
How often are they held? Every 4 years or something? When was the last one?
Don't even know that. And it's cool that it's in Japan, so I'm kind of interested to go along just to find out what it is. But that got me wondering, like, people listening to this, people watching this, what about you? Is the Osaka Expo something that you're keen to visit? You wouldn't ever waste any money on it, or you're somewhere in the middle and you haven't made up your mind yet? What do you think? I'm really interested to hear.
Look at the comments. Who's going to the World Expo then? The Banpaku. It's every 5 years. I just checked.
Every 5? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, somewhere in the world.
Somewhere in the world. You see, that sounds like a big deal to me. It's like, oh wow, that's definitely something I should be going to. But then I kind of also think maybe it's just like a trade conference, and you just walk past.
So what is it?
And,
I don't know. What is it? What do you do there? You know?
Yeah, exactly. You just like walk around and look.
I don't have an image of, like, I remember, like, the Victorian ones where they'd be like, "Look at my flying machine." And
right.
Stuff.
Yeah. But if it's stuff like that, that would be cool. Different country, each country's new technology. They're scrambling for foreign language volunteers, apparently. So if you're in that area, that'd be a volunteering opportunity. I don't know. I think I might try and go down there, actually.
You could do a little field report for us for RetireJapan TV.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I will. I mean, I don't like crowds, and I don't, it seems very fuzzy as to what exactly you're going to get out of it. So
yeah, that's what sort of puts me off at the moment. But I don't know.
And there's going to be a lot of foreign tourists, and I don't like foreign tourists.
Yes. Those pesky foreign tourists. Right. Well, people are considering that. Let's look at the next section then. So I think we've covered all the interesting news. Next, we've got the Frivolous Purchase Confessional, the new section that we introduced. And I don't have anything really silly, I don't think, but I did buy my first ever fukubukuro, the sort of the lucky bag that comes out at the beginning of every year in Japan. Hotel. So I've always thought, are they really worth it? Oh, they look cool, but it's probably not worth it. And they're just going to give you like leftover stuff from the shop. And in Akihabara or something, you get the electronics ones. I bet there's some really cool electronics in there, but what if they're not? It's just a waste of money, blah, blah, blah. We went to a hotel in Hakone. It's a sort of a day trip outside of Tokyo, if you're in the Tokyo area. Very nice place. And the hotel there, they said from 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to give away, or not give away, but we're having fukubukuros on sale. What was it? 7,000 yen, but the content is worth, I think it was 15,000 or something like that. So I'm sure they're inflating that value a little bit. But anyway, it's like, oh, that's cool. And it's basically it's food stuff. They said it's food and drinks from the shop in the hotel. So we go to the shop in advance and have a look around. And sure enough, it's quite a big little, a big shop. and it's got a nice variety of some of the cookies and stuff as gifts, but also some stuff you could use at home, like pickled whatever. So that sounds really tempting. So I decided going to go for it. 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I'm there. I'm not an early riser, but I come down at about 7:45 or something, and there's already 2 or 3 people in the queue. So wow, so glad that I got here early. Yeah, but it's more than 0 because they didn't have that many. They were only at 50 bags available or something like that. Anyway, we're standing around waiting, and it's quite cool. It's having a conversation, and we were totally different people. I'm obviously a middle-aged white foreigner. There was a young teenage, I think looked like teenager, like basically in sort of tracksuit thing, and I'm imagining that his family had pushed him out, like, here's some money, go and get it.
You go buy that thing.
Yeah, we're going to sleep. There was an elderly couple. There was a sort of looked like a professional salaryman or something, and reading the newspaper. So yeah, really sort of different bunch of people there. And it was a really nice chat. Like we were all sort of the only people who wanted to get it this early, and yeah, right, we're in this together. So I got it, and it was pretty good actually. It's full of. I've got one here actually. This boxes of stuff like this. This is maple financier cakes, which are really really nice, and it is indeed a mixture. Sorry, that's the heater. A mixture of things that you could use as omiyage and gifts, and things that we could eat at home. Like shiitake tea, for example. So in the end, yeah, I think it was worth it. It wasn't a huge bargain that I thought it was, but it certainly wasn't a rip-off. And
I thought it was going to be like hotel rooms or something, like
I see,
hotel, future stays, vouchers or something.
Sadly not, no. The only disappointing thing was that later when we actually checked out, I looked at the shop and they've still got several bags left, so I didn't need to wake up at 8 o'clock. But still, that's my confessional. I fell for the hype and bought a fukubukuro.
No, it seems to have worked out okay.
Yes, I don't know if I'd do it every year, but it was still fun.
You wouldn't get up early for it, though, at least.
No.
I remember when I first came to Japan, it seemed the New Year sales were more of a big deal.
Yeah.
Like 25 years ago. Like, you'd get the things in the newspaper and go through them, and there were deals, and people were lining up the night before. You'd go to Yodobashi or something, and people would be there the day before lining up for the fukubukuro.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't seem to be that way anymore.
No, the fever is not really there.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because I'm older and I'm not as materialistic as I was back then, but yeah, I don't see it as much.
Maybe less value.
Or maybe people just aren't into spending. The economy's not doing as well as it was, and therefore people aren't going to be spending 200,000 yen on whatever. So
yeah. Now speaking of frivolous purchases, you've got something as well.
So yesterday, I was hanging around a hospital on Friday for my tests, and I was really out of it for some reason. So I hadn't eaten and stuff, so I couldn't really concentrate. I was trying to read some book on investing. I wasn't concentrating. So I thought, what I really want to read some Terry Pratchett, and I had 2 Terry Pratchett books on my Kindle, right? So I started reading. I reread them basically. And then I was like, wow, I want to read all of the Terry, because I've read all his books before, but I don't own them anymore. So I read them, when I was in school and university and so on. So yesterday I went into Amazon, and my Kindle account's with Amazon.com, because when I opened it, they didn't have Amazon Japan. So the only option was to have an Amazon.com account. So all my books are on Amazon.com basically. And I went on there and I looked for Terry Pratchett. And they're doing this thing now where they'll bundle stuff for you. So it just popped up as there are 40 books and you can buy all of them with one button. I was like, okay.
Dangerous.
So I did. I just clicked on the button, and I've got all the Terry Pratchett books now, which is very exciting. So
is that one of those Amazon bundles that is
it doesn't save you any money. It just saves you. Yeah, exactly. So all they did is go through and add up the price of all the books and give you that price. But it did save me clicking on 40 books. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So
read them, or are you like me where you get the books and you never actually get around to reading them?
No, this one I'm going to read. So I read one yesterday. I'm going to finish the second one today. So
wow, you're a fast reader.
Yeah, especially Terry Pratchett. It's very lightweight. So
wow, I'm a really slow reader.
So yeah, someone was like, "Oh, that's going to take you a year." I put it on Twitter or something, and I was like, "Nope, it's a couple of months tops."
Really? Wow. Oh, I'm impressed.
Give me something to do other than doom scrolling. When you you got 5 minutes. I'm just going to read my books now rather than.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so that was my Frivolous purchase. I didn't need to buy these books that I've already read, but I think it's going to make me happy. So it was worth $400. I think was the average.
Wow.
That's 40 books. Some of them are $5.99 and some of them are $14.99. So
I suppose so. Yeah,
averaged out.
Yeah, wow,
it's worth it. It's going to give me hours of enjoyment. So
yeah, good. Right, let's move on to the next thing, and I've got another important. Here we go. Oh, regular viewers will know what that is. Yes, it's time for my money tip. Side note, I thought of a money-saving tip the other day. I was making some mushroom soup, and it's like, wait a minute, this is just like exactly like every other soup I've made. Get a bunch of old vegetables discounted at the end of the day from the supermarket, put some stock in, blend it up. There you go, dirt cheap soup. That's my money-saving tip.
Nice.
But I do have something a bit more interesting. We talked a bit about JAL earlier, and somebody said JAL mileage bank is rubbish. Yes and no. I think
yes and no, definitely.
It's harder to earn miles or get status, certainly, than many other airlines.
It's hard to get seats with miles.
Well, again, yes, I know. Internationally, I find it very hard. So recently, more and more, I'm using JAL miles for domestic flights. I've almost basically kind of given up getting international ones because I thought it was just me. But if you've got the same problem, then yeah,
that's my use case. Like I want to book business class flights to Europe, and it's almost impossible now with JAL and ANA.
Yeah, I found the same thing.
Really
and even
hard.
their partner flights through them. I found some available going to the UK, but it was going through New York or somewhere. They go through the US to get to the UK, and it adds an extra 10 hours or something on the flight. So, we've been using them domestically, and so we've got family down in Fukuoka, and we're in Kanto area, so it's pretty handy flying down. And we get the miles through our credit card. Used to get it through our electricity account as well, but we switched, so that stopped. But anyway, gradually building up these miles. So how is this saving money? Well, both JAL and ANA have got little sort of schemes that they run permanently. It's not like a short campaign. It's like a permanent thing where you can get flights for cheaper miles, but with restrictions, obviously. So let's go over them one by one. The ANA one is called Toku Tabi Mairu. Let me put that, and it's got a page. The information is only in Japanese from what I could find. But anyway, Toku Tabi Mairu. Put that in the chat. There we go. So Anna's thing is very cheap mileage to fly to certain places in Japan, mostly only going from Tokyo or Osaka, maybe Sapporo and Nagoya as well sometimes. And it changes each week, and it's restricted. So, for example, this week right now, you can go from Tokyo to Sapporo for 4,000 miles. Tokyo to Asahika, that's also in Hokkaido. Let's find the Osaka one, shall we? Osaka to Niigata for 4,000 miles. They've got some for 3,000 miles, some for 6,500, depending on the distance. But basically, this is a lot more. The way I think is it's roughly half, I think, the mileage that you would usually spend. So where's the catch? Well, each week, the list of cities changes. And so if you want to go a particular week to a particular place, chances are that the cities that you want to go to is not going to be there that week. So it's kind of a bit of a gamble there. Also, it changes week by week, and you have to fly within that week. So the week before what is it? It works. The current one is up to the 22nd, Wednesday. So from Wednesday, they will announce the new cities for the following week. You have to book it like that first sort of 7 days in order to fly during the following 7 days. So yeah, quite restrictive. But if you're flexible and you want to fly to a particular place, then just get a few ANA miles, 4,000 miles or whatever. Wait until it pops up, check it every week, and then bada bing, you can go for roughly half the miles that you normally need.
This would be good for retired people in Japan. People who are retired in Japan, yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So I've not tried this yet, but it's very tempting, and I keep an eye on it just in case. So JAL, what do they do? Well, they do something kind of similar. Of course, this is Japan, so similar companies are going to do the same kind of thing. But their one is called I've lost it. Dokoka ni Mairu. Okay, Dokoka ni Mairu. I'm not sure which of them came up with it first, but this is slightly different, and that it's a bit more of a sort of a lottery, and it requires, I forgot now, I'm pretty sure, here we go, 7,000 miles return. So the mileage that I was talking about earlier was just stuck with one-way ticket. Normally, if we're flying down to Fukuoka, for example, that requires 8,000 miles one way. These ones with the JAL one are 7,000 miles return wherever you go. What's the catch? Well, the catch is it can only be within the following month. So, over the next month or so. But you can't choose where you're going to go. Okay, bear with me. It's not as bad as it sounds. So it's got an omoshikomi button on there, and you click that. You have to have a mileage account, actually, obviously, to even be able to see the list. But it gives you a selection of 4 cities where you could go to, and you can't choose which one of those 4 you're going to go to. Now, you can reload the page or redo the search, and it will give you another bunch of 4. I did it earlier, and it gave me one selection. It was Nagoya, it was Naha in Okinawa, it was Asahikawa up in Hokkaido, and I think the other one was Okayama. So you say, yes, I want to book it. Here's my 7,000 miles. And then I think a day or 2 later, JAL will send you an email saying, okay, you are going to Okayama, or you're going to whatever. You can specify the date. You can even specify the rough time that you want to fly and that you want to return. So as long as you sort of book out that time, then you are guaranteed a ticket to one of the 4 places that were on the screen. It's just you can't select which of those 4 you go to. But it's very cheap in terms of miles. I don't know how many people were aware of that, but when I found it, it's like...
I wasn't.
I really want to try it. I haven't tried it yet. But
I think I have more miles than I have flexibility, though. So.
Right. Yeah, if you got the right credit cards, you can build up miles pretty quickly, I think. But even so even if you don't use either of these 2 sort of special deals, then I think generally if you do have miles, then, well, from me, and it sounds like you as well, the better use of it is for domestic flights, because availability is really good. We just got some actually from my wife. She's traveling later this week, and we got it for 8,000 miles.
Yeah, and it just seems easier to book, doesn't it? Because it's almost impossible to get international flights.
Yeah.
Unless you're Diamond, I think, because they prioritize the Diamond members.
Oh.
So, you get waitlisted, and basically if you're not, even I'm mid-tier elite, and I'm not going to get basically waitlisted. Basically waitlisting expires at the moment.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't have any status anymore. Yeah,
JAL, you have the right credit cards.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
JAL and ANA, yeah.
JAL J-class seats are fantastic. Says Dr. Krishna. Yes, I agree. They're really nice. They used to be only 1,000 yen extra. I think there's 2,000 extra now, but still.
Nice. Huge. Definitely worth it.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my money saving tip. Money, it's miles, but it's still, I think, saving.
Yeah, counts.
Certainly, booking at last minute, like we did this week, domestic flight, it was 26,000 yen, I think, one way. Whereas with miles, it was 8,000. They don't do that last minute increase if it's flying very short notice.
It's not an increase. It's they make available certain number of seats at the cheap price, and those sell out. So what you get left with are the seats that are more expensive,
which is the regular price. Just
yeah, exactly. So if you can book, like, I think it's like 2 months out, you can normally get the cheapest seats, and those sell out, and therefore you end up with the really expensive prices at the end.
Right. Okay. So there you go. My tip. Well, I think we've come to the end of a lot of the.
We have. So forum updates, I don't have them today, so just go to the forum and check out some interesting stuff.
Right, I'll just get the link for that. We talked about the Japan Finance subreddit earlier. How would you compare the Retire Japan forum to that subreddit?
The Retire Japan forum is policed more strictly, I think, in that it's mine and I have full control and there's no oversight. So basically, if I don't like something, I will, delete people and stuff. So basically, I think I'd say the Retire Japan forum is more civil, because Reddit's not policed in that same way. So even on the Japan Finance subreddit, which is fantastic, there's still that kind of Reddit kind of snarky, nastiness, which I don't like personally. But there's a lot more action. So, I mean, they have like, I think hundreds of thousands of, members, which is kind of crazy. So there's a much broader pool of people to answer questions. If you have a very specific question, that you're probably more likely to get an answer on Reddit than on the Retire Japan forum. But I think the Retire Japan forum is just a little bit kind of nicer, maybe.
Okay, good. Thank you. Right, so then next is Q&A. We have got a bunch of ones.
Yeah, we built up a few, didn't we? I think going all the way back to Kelly. You had a really nice question.
Oh, no, before that it was 8:59. Oh, yeah, it was Kelly as well. So the first one is, when will Japan offer a middle name bar on online forms?
Never.
Having said that, I was logged into my, again, JAL account the other day, and it had a middle name box, and I don't remember them having that before, because my name is all joined into one. So I think that's something they've added recently. So maybe slowly others will kind of follow.
Progress.
When? Who knows? Fake Sendai Ben says, what are your thoughts on Seven Bank? They think it's a good competitor to Revolut and Wise. JCB being accepted overseas.
Not too familiar with it, to be honest.
No.
7-Eleven though is trying to divest like the supermarket, for example. They're trying to get rid of Yokubeni Maru and stuff. So I don't know if they're going to keep their finance arm as well.
All right.
That would be my only comment there. I haven't used Seven Bank, so.
You're still very happy with Wise, I think, aren't you?
I love Wise. I think Wise is amazing for sending things overseas. I still use Shinsei, even though the service has got worse and worse over time. But it's still fine. It's a solid thing. I've got a Sony bank account, but I don't really use it.
Right. Yeah. So I think the next one from Kelly is the one you were referring to.
Yeah.
Was there a wake-up time in your life journey where you realized you must invest, and when was it?
Yeah, definitely. So 2008, I lost my job at short notice, and it was incredibly stressful. And we weren't quite sure how we were going to pay the rent and buy food and do that stuff. So that was my wake-up call. That was like, okay, so I need to get my life in order. And part of that was saving money, and part of that was investing money. So it was all basically, it's my fault that losing my job put us in this really unpleasant situation. So I need to fix that. And fixing that means learning about personal finance and getting a bit stronger, kind of bulletproof. So that losing a job doesn't matter, having a car accident doesn't matter financially, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that was mine. How about you?
I've always been interested in investing. I had twin grandfathers, and the one who was not my mum's dad, but his twin brother, did it as a hobby and lost some of the family money apparently. But anyway, they didn't put me off. I still thought it was fascinating.
So you had rich grandfather, poor grandfather.
Unfortunately, he wasn't. Well, neither was really rich, but he was trying. He was living in America at the time. I think he enjoyed it, and some of the family asked him to look after their money as well. And there was a crash or something. I don't know. It didn't work out long term. But fortunately, I don't think it was so bad that the family fell apart, because by the time I was sort of aware of what was going on, we were still one big happy family. So I think it was more dabbling. Anyways, I've always been interested in it. And I had shares relatively young age that I sort of, spent my Saturday money on, and thought I was doing things well. And then moved to Japan. I'm working in Japan. I've still got the shares in England, and not kind of getting rich somehow. And then I remember clearly this moment, it's about 15 years ago, on the bus to work, going into Tokyo. And I was looking at my credit card statement, and it hit me. I've been a good boy, paying the credit card, minimum amount every month, like a good boy. And then it just hit me like, I'm paying more interest than the minimum fees are. And it's going up each month, because it felt like it was going up each month, but I wasn't really checking. And then this one time I decided on the bus for some reason, take a look into it. And it's like, wait a minute. And it was, I can't remember how much it was now, but it was more than just, a cup of coffee's got its worth. It's like, I'm spending this much per month and it's just interest, but I'm paying the minimum amount off, but it's increasing. I'm not using it anymore. And it was just really shocking to me. Like, this is only going to go in one direction. And I had to do something about it. And then I did some research and found the Your Money or Your Life book, read that again on the bus to and from work. And then it was like, okay, things changed now. And that might be...
I think everyone has some incident that kind of pushes them.
Yeah. So then the priority was, because people say, get rid of your debt before you invest. And I knew that, but I was always like, yeah, but the way I invest is going to be more valuable than the credit card interest rate. I'm going to make more than that, so I don't need to listen to that advice. But no, at that point, it was, okay, we get rid of the debt. And it took about 4 years, I think, something like that, to get rid of that credit card debt. But I did it. It wasn't crippling, but it was just, I didn't want to sort of hurt family finances, so I would just pay enough steadily over time that it would go down in a controlled way. And that was about that time then that I just walked down the street in Meguro near my job and saw a sign for this guy Ben, who was doing some presentation thing about finance. Pay 2,000 yen, come on Saturday. And so I did. And then it was, how to actually invest in Japan. And yeah, that's why I'm here, because it changed my life.
That's incredible that people actually came to that.
It could have been some dodgy scam for all I knew, but it was 2,000 yen. It was worth the risk.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Very good question, Kelly. Thank you. Right. Foregone conclusion. Will the Bank of Japan upping... Okay, I'll let you click it. Sorry. Upping interest rates have an effect on investments in currency? I think I read this somewhere where they have not announced when, but they sort of indicated they are planning to increase interest rates over the coming months.
Yeah, standard answer. I have no idea. Probably. Don't know how or when or whatever. One thing that's changed recently, though, I got a letter last week from my bank saying that my mortgage interest has gone up. So I have a floating rate mortgage. And it's never changed. It's been 0.5% the whole time. But I got a letter, and apparently the interest has gone up by 0.15%. So it's now 0.65% rather than 0.5%.
That's still low.
That's quite a big increase percentage-wise. I think it's something like an extra 1,000 yen a month on our mortgage in interest, which is... It's still fine, but it's more than it was before. And I think that's one consequence of interest rates going up. That we're going to see more. I put that on the forum, and several people said, yeah, my mortgage went up as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for those letters if you've got a floating rate mortgage, like most people in Japan do.
But they are limited, like legally limited, aren't they, as to how much they can increase?
So there's a really interesting system, which is, I think, the 5 and 25 or something. So it can only go up by up to 25% every 5 years or something. And lots of banks have a system where even if the interest rate goes up, your payments don't. So what that means is that your loan gets bigger, basically, because the interest is being applied to it, but you're not necessarily having to pay it off. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on that and understanding how it works. Might be a good blog post at some point, actually.
I think so, yeah.
Because I don't completely understand it either. I just know that there's a protection where your payments are not going to go up at the same rate as interest rates.
Yeah.
And that's to protect the consumer so that, you're not losing your home suddenly just because your mortgage payments went up.
Regarding currency, I have thoughts on this. So one country's interest rate going up or down should influence a currency, but then on the other side, there's got to be another country. And of course, whether their interest rate goes up or down will also influence it. So it's not just Japan, but it's also, for example, the USA that you then have to try and predict. So now you've got to predict two things, which is really hard. But on top of that, if everyone, let's say, knows, quote, knows or assumes that, let's say, the US interest rates are going to go up, it also is important what the market expects. So if the market expects 0.5% and then they go up 0.25%, then that's kind of the same effect as if it were going down. Or if they equally increased it more than the market expected, then that's going to have the opposite effect. So you've got to try and predict not just what each country does, but also what the market kind of expects that country to do, and then they might not react in the same. It's just, yeah. I think it gets way too complicated.
It's not worth thinking about, basically. It's kind of like all these tax avoidance schemes, like at our level, a normal person who's trying to, save and invest for the future, it's not even worth thinking about. As long as you've got a fairly decent plan, just do your plan and don't worry about all this noise because it's not actionable. This information is not helping you make better decisions. It's just confusing you. So, worrying about, the Bank of Japan is having a meeting next week, or, interest rates have gone down by 0.2. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's not helping you make better decisions. It's just stressing you out, basically. So, yeah, my take is that, at our level, we're not international fund managers with 3 billion under management who talk to, officials at the bank. We're just people that read the newspaper. So, personally, I don't even think about that stuff.
I think the time when people might think about it or try to predict it is when they're faced with getting a mortgage and they are asked, okay, do you want a floating rate or do you want a fixed rate? And then you feel under pressure to try and predict, okay, what do I think interest rates are going to do over the next 35 years?
Right?
Unfortunately, it's really hard for the average person to think about. Well, for anyone to think about, I think, over 35 years especially. What would you say to them? Like, you don't worry about it, or like...
So my decision was that a floating rate mortgage is much cheaper than a fixed rate mortgage. And I didn't believe that it was going to go up enough to make it worth having a fixed rate mortgage.
Right.
So I got a mortgage at 0.5%. If I tried to get a fixed rate mortgage, it would have been like 1.2 or something. I don't believe my floating rate is going to go above 1.2. So for me, if that's true, then it's cheaper to have the floating rate. Now, some people will look at that the other way and they'll say, I can afford 1.2. I can't afford more than that. So I will take the more expensive fixed rate as a form of insurance. And that makes complete sense as well. So it really depends on your situation. The other thing is that our mortgage is tiny. So we could pay it off tomorrow if we really wanted to. So it's not a big deal. Whereas if it was a large mortgage and it was a significant amount of our income, say, we might have looked at it differently.
Yeah, it's funny because I took the opposite approach that you just mentioned. I was
Oh.
not like sure about what was going to happen, and I'd seen my parents really struggle in the UK with super high interest rates in the 80s. There was a double-digit interest rates on their mortgage, and
Yeah, it's
I
like
don't know.
17%, wasn't it? 18%,
Yeah,
something like that.
yes, and so at the time I could get I think it was just over 1% mortgage, and it wasn't as low as the floating one, but that was fixed for 35 years. So yeah, I'm happy knowing that I have this certain amount of year not to pay, and it's not going to change for the next 35 years. And it's not might be great right now, but I'm not going to have to worry about it in the future.
Now, there's one form of mortgage that makes no sense whatsoever to me.
Oh,
so floating rate makes sense. You're basically betting that the interest rates are not going to go above the fixed rates. Fixed rate makes sense. You're guaranteeing your mortgage payment forever. It's a lot of peace of mind in that. There's mortgages where you can fix the first 5 years and then float afterwards, or fix the first 10 years and float afterwards. And that makes no sense whatsoever. So you're making the mortgage expensive now when you know what the interest rates are. And then later when you don't know what the interest rates are, you're going to float it. Like it makes no sense whatsoever. I don't understand why anyone would take that mortgage.
Yeah.
So don't, unless you can explain to me why I'm wrong. Yeah, floating rate makes sense. Fixed makes sense. A hybrid, like if you could do it the other way, if you could float it now and fix it later, that would make sense. But fixing it now and floating it later makes no sense whatsoever.
Except for the providers.
Oh yeah, it's great for them.
Right, a couple of other comments we've had earlier. Senafort Vid asked, didn't Japan start charging a 1,000 yen departure tax in 2019?
Yes, they did, but that applies to everyone. That applies to residents as well. And I don't want to pay more taxes. I want tourists to pay more taxes. So yeah, it's built into plane tickets. So every time you leave Japan, you're paying an extra 1,000 yen, and that's for everyone. But I want tourists to pay when they arrive here because they don't have to get a visa.
The Tokyo Metropolitan Government plans to begin offering financial aid of up to 3.15 million from 2026 for those looking to study abroad at a higher education institution.
It's incredibly generous.
Yeah, but also Japanese people to study outside of Japan. Oh, yeah. Hoping that they would bring that knowledge back.
Don't know. Governor Koike is just like spending all the money.
Okay. Right. What about Japanese tourists traveling to Kyoto? Should they also pay that extra tax on hotels? As far as I'm aware, it's everybody. Anybody who stays in a hotel in Kyoto.
Yeah. Although I think so, I've stayed in hotels before, and there's a little box that you tick. It's like, I'm traveling for pleasure, I'm traveling for business.
Yeah.
And I think at some point the business travelers don't pay the tourist tax. So I don't know if that's how Kyoto's doing it, but I have done that in the past, where if you tick one box, you pay more. So I just tick the business box. I think it's harder to do if you've got your kids with you, but I was on my own.
Yeah. There you go. Money saving tip from Ben. But we don't endorse not telling the truth.
Yes.
Jack Plummer, if I have a stocks with an 82% upside in the next 30 years, I would invest. So would I if I knew it was guaranteed, but I don't think.
I think this is talking about the earthquake.
Oh, I see. Right. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people keep posting akiyas on LinkedIn. I found this beautiful akiya by the seaside, and I just look at it and I'm like, okay, so that's like 2 meters above the sea level, and the Nankai Trough is just gonna destroy it completely. So yeah, it puts a filter on things, having seen the tsunami stuff here.
Yes. Yeah, you must have. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that earthquake is gonna change Japan. So.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? I saw some company recently is trying to move out, or at least like diversify where their headquarters are based. just kind of ahead of assuming there will be disaster at some point, and so they're trying to shift the logistics to multiple smaller so-called mini head offices rather than one big central one.
Makes sense.
Can't remember which company it was now. Also, it kind of makes me think that having the expo in Osaka rather than Tokyo is a good idea, because although obviously Osaka Kansai region is just as much as at risk, it still encourages that not everything has to be in Tokyo, not super centralized in one area.
True. Yeah.
What else do we have? Oh, I think pretty much we're there. JAL Global Club offers excellent perks. Sadly, I don't know yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah. It's quite hard to get it, but once you've got it, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So I've got JAL Global Club and the ANA Superflyers Club.
You got both? Whoa, look at you.
Yeah, I got one year and the other the next year. I was really into miles and points at one point.
Right. Yeah.
But once you've got those cards, as long as you keep paying the fees, you get to keep them. And the perks are, for me, worth it. Like being able to use business class check-in, being able to use the lounges, really nice.
Yeah.
For the main one's business class check-in, actually, because on any ticket, like.
Right. Yeah. So final question then, foregone conclusion again, is earthquake insurance worth it? Well, I think if you get a mortgage, you have to. It's compulsory, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I had to get insurance. But I was allowed to kind of decide what grade. So that the bank recommended one. I took one that was a lot cheaper.
Right.
We've had several large payouts for what I thought was minor damage from earthquake insurance. So the nice thing in Japan is that the insurance does pay and it pays out quite generously. When we had it, it was based on, they basically did it on the floor area rather than specific damages. It wasn't like, okay, my TV's broken, here's the receipt from the TV, it's 3 years old, they're going to depreciate it by this much, which is what I expected it would be like. Instead, it was like, okay, so you've had some damage and your mansion is 82 square meters, therefore here's your check for 400,000 yen or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
Like the payouts had no relationship with actual damages.
Oh, okay.
I think because they had so many claims.
Right. Oh, okay.
And these are not from the mega earthquake. These are from, recent ones, which were, not as bad. So I think, it's definitely worth it. The flip side, though, I mean, it's worth having, but it's not necessarily going to pay for your damages. Like I had a friend whose house in the 311, his house shifted, and they wouldn't pay because it wasn't completely destroyed. It wasn't Zenkai. So he had to pay most of the work of getting it fixed. And that was a lot of money. I think it was 15 million yen or something.
I know it's not funny, but it's like, no, we can't pay for your house. Just change the address to the next number now that your house has moved. That's, it must be
and I've got my wife's got friends that own mansion buildings, and the earthquake didn't cover the cost of repairs for them either.
Really? Oh.
Not completely.
Right. Oh.
So there's basically conditions on how they'll pay out, and it may or may not cover you. So
yeah, we have earthquake insurance here. I got a feeling though it was because we had to because of the mortgage, but yeah, I feel good having it. We have had to use our home insurance for typhoon damage actually 3 or 4 years ago. The carport. It was the middle of the night, and my wife said, "Oh, there's some noise or something coming from the carport." And I went to look, and obviously it's dark and the street light. And all I can see is something on top of the carport, sort of flapping about. And it's like the rubber lining.
Was the carport.
It was a piece of metal. It was this metal that was flapping about like a bit of rubber. I thought it was rubber. In the morning, I was stunned, and that meant that all the sort of like the acrylic kind of panel things then like flew off and shattered, narrowly missing the neighbor's car, fortunately. So we had to get that repaired. We got a company in to provide us with a quote, and then we sent that quote to the insurance company with photos of the damage, and they sent back the amount that the quote was.
Okay.
And we got it done, and it was all easy. And we didn't rip anybody off and trying to get a bit of extra money, and they didn't try and rip us off it was all just as it should be. So
yeah, we've
earthquake
claimed
insurance is the
flood
same,
damage as well. When we had a rental house, it flooded a couple of times. But again, that was based on the square meterage rather than anything else.
Interesting. I'm surprised at that. But if it works, if they've got a lot of claims, then that's the easiest way then.
Yeah. So yeah, I think obviously insurance it can be useful as long as you're aware of how and you know how it works basically.
Good. Well, I think
2 hours exactly. That was perfect, I think.
Yeah. Did we cover everything? Yeah, I think so. Next one is February the 17th. So yeah, roughly.
Nice. And then from April, we're going to be moving to Wednesdays. So my work schedule is not going to allow us to do Monday evenings anymore. So just a bit of advance notice. But February and March will be on a Monday still.
Yeah, at 8 p.m. Japan time.
8 p.m. Japan. Yeah, not 9 as I somehow said for this one.
Just to be clear, it's not every Monday. This is once a month. So the next one, Monday, the 17th of February.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks for joining us live. If you would joined us live, and have a great January, and we'll see you in February.
Yep. Bye, everyone.